You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast, hosted by high-stakes headhunter, author, and professional speaker, Scott Love.
You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast, and my name is Scott Love. Thank you for joining me on the show. We've got a special guest today. This is someone who's a close friend of mine. He's been in the sales industry for years. He's built successful teams. He's taken teams from 60 million to 120 million because of his leadership. And he's going to talk about what it really takes to succeed, which is understanding people. I think that in this show, his philosophy of people-based businesses and what he can teach you, you'll see a surprising journey as we go through this podcast, and I want you to be ready for change. I think that in business, we'd like to think that we're cold-blooded, calculating business people, but in business, it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? It's all about who you are, the challenges that you need to overcome, and how you can achieve and thrive and help others to do that. And you're going to hear some deep insights today from my friend Hugh, where he takes you on that journey and shows you specifically how you can grow. And it might be in a way that will surprise you. So I want to thank you for listening to this show. This is a top 2% podcast because of you. So I want to thank you for listening to this. And our guest, Hugh Hornsby, will put all of his contact information and how you can reach him on the show notes. So no matter where you get this podcast, go to the show notes section and you'll be able to connect with Hugh. I know that after hearing him today, you will. Get ready for an exciting adventure of personal growth, hearing my friend Hugh share his story. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Leopard Solutions Legal Intelligence suite of products, Firmscape, and Leopard BI. Push ahead of the pack with the power of Leopard. And now here's my conversation with my close friend, Hugh Hornsby. Thanks for listening. Hey, this is Scott Love with the Rainmaking Podcast. Our special guest today is a very close friend of mine, Hugh Hornsby, and he is a professional in the sales industry. And we are talking about people-based business philosophies with Hugh Hornsby. Hugh, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Scott. I'm thrilled to be here. Respect you so much and everything that you've done. And I thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about what we have accomplished. I've turned around or built up over 10 companies. I say that I have built up, turned around 10 companies. And when it really comes down to it, as we all know, that one person does not do it. And it's really based on the people that you bring into the organization to start to believe in themselves.
Absolutely right. And so if there was one common theme that you've seen in those organizations that you have turned around, that you have really built, and by the way, you've got some impressive numbers under your belt in terms of what you've done. But if there's one common theme, what would that theme be?
I'd say the common theme is this, and it took me a long time to learn this. And in the business world, there's a lot of people that are going to kind of take a step back and really ask themselves whether what I'm saying, if they believe it or not, because 80 to 90% of the business world, 80 to 90 to even almost 100% of our educational world is based on numbers. And it is a report card when we come through school. It's a report card when we go through college. And it's a report card a lot of times when we go through business. And when I say a report card, I mean the numbers. And the numbers are really important. I get it. But when it really comes down to it, if you're going to turn and change a culture around, it's about the people.
Yeah.
And that one person, whoever it is that you're working with, no matter whether it's your, an attorney firm or whether you're in business or whether you're just a friend to the person next door, it's got to be all about them.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to business, what I find is that a lot of times we're hiring people on report cards. We're hiring people on resumes. What I've been able to do is that I really look for people that are either stuck or have some type of drive that they feel like just has held them back. And I start to have a different conversation with them to figure out where it is that they want to go. So I'm a big Think and Grow Rich person. And I read that book on a regular basis. But the bottom line is it's about want. And it's about what people want. And I think other people live their lives a lot of times based on what everybody tells them what they can and can't do. So I try to find those people that maybe were a little bit stuck. And then the way that I built these businesses, I started out that, first of all, you've got to have a burning desire. You've got to get away for something or be running towards something. Second, you have to make a decision that you have to want to invest in yourself.
Right.
If you do that, and when I mean invest in yourself, it's just not reading a book, on a Saturday. I'm talking about maybe going out and investing, finding coaching or whatever it may be, mentors to help you through that. And then if you do that, I'll pour into you.
Right, right.
And then what we've been able to do is that you've got to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. And then where I find a lot of times people fail is that they make it all about themselves. When they start making it about other people, the people that they're in front of, the client, the company, that really changes things around. And then you've got to be a part of a team. So the way that I've done it a lot of times is I've brought these people in and we do meetings 5 days a week when we can, but we're, investing in each other, but they're investing. What I love it is they start to invest in each other as well.
Oh, wow. That's like critical mass, right? Now you get a team where there's this symbiotic relationship within your team.
Yeah, because there's so many people that I hire that come from so many different backgrounds that are so much smarter than I am in so many different areas. If I just get out of the way sometimes and then just facilitate the traffic, I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, Scott.
Yeah, right. That's good. That's leverage, right?
Yeah, it's leverage. And I always say that my job is to work myself out of a job and move on to the next thing. But the other thing that I've always done with people, and it's very different, is that I put them in a position where I do not have them sign non-competes. Now, every market and every company is different, but my feeling that is if we're investing in them in the way that we should, they shouldn't have to want to go somewhere. Or if they do go someplace, they're going for something that's much bigger than what we have available. But there's another part to it, Scott, that a lot of people don't know, is that a lot of the businesses I've turned around are small to medium-sized businesses. When I say small, 20 million, 12 million, 24, whatever. The last one was 65 million. We took them to 150. The bottom line is that how do you tie this culture, the culture that you're developing with each person, into the company? And so the challenge many times is the CEO. So if you have a CEO that has come through the world and he started, in my case, delivering on a truck somewhere, and he's built this business to a certain level, and it's at a level that's probably bigger than he's ever had, getting him to not try to do it all is one of the biggest challenges that we have.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I have to try to, I have to work with them as well to kind of get them to start changing their mindset.
So let me summarize things. This is pretty much a formula that you've given us. Let me kind of go over these. There's probably about 7 points that you made. Number one, you're finding people that have an issue that they can't resolve in their current situation. They're either running away from something or running towards something. There's an intrinsic motivation where you can harness that and give them an opportunity where they can reach that goal within your organization, right?
Right.
And then secondly, you're looking for people that are investing in themselves. Third, you want them to be a part of something bigger themselves. 4, you're coaching them. Don't make it about you, make it about other people. And then 5, now they're part of a team. And 6, now that team is starting to invest in each other. I don't know what number we're on. Then you're gaining leverage as an executive by hiring talented people that might even be more talented than you. And then finally, you don't clench them with the closed fist. You hold them in the palm of your hand with fingers open. They can leave anytime they want. They're free to go. But
and some of them, some of them don't make it. It's the hardest thing that I do. I had to learn early on that you can't fix everybody.
Yeah.
One of the things I figured out, Scott, is that we're all stuck.
Wait, what do you mean by that, Hugh? What does that mean?
Well, I think if you take a look at people, there are people that have had more successes than others. But I'm a firm believer at how we get up in the morning. Mm-hmm. I do affirmations, gratitude. By the way, I really teach my team to start doing the gratitude affirmations at night and in the morning, because, when we go to bed at night, what we think about a lot of times is all the bad stuff that happened behind us. But if they can go to bed with gratitude and say, boy, this was a great day and I'm appreciative for such and such and appreciative for my family. And it's like a 10-minute gratitude. And if you do that, when you get up in the morning, it changes the attitude of the way they look at life. But what I meant by that is that I think we're all a little bit stuck. Some of us are a lot more stuck than others. And a lot of that comes from, I'm a big conscious mind and unconscious mind. We pick up along the way things that people tell us what we can do and what we can't do. And we store that in what we call the unconscious mind. And then we hide that, and it comes out at times, a lot of times when we don't want it to. But I'm a firm believer, and I think one of the things that I've been able to do here with these people is, with my teammates, is get them to reprogram the way that they think. And that's the biggest thing that I feel like. And when I did this, they used to call me an unconscious competent. Now I'm a conscious competent. It's really scary, but now I really know what I'm doing. And that's what I'm really trying to do with people, is to help them reprogram what's in that unconscious mind that they picked up along the way, and turn those negatives that they have into positives.
And tell me, how do you do that exactly, Hugh?
Well, there's only two ways. A good friend of mine is Dave Sanderson, and we talk about this all the time. He's a mindset coach, and he came through Tony Robbins' group at one time, but he went down in the Hudson. He was on the plane that went down in the Hudson.
Yeah, wow.
And so something came up in his mind at the time where he decided, instead of trying to get out of the plane, he went to the back and got everybody else off. And it's changed his life because he's done that. He goes around and he talks about that. But we call it a 9/11 moment. If you have something, a major tragedy, and a tragedy to you doesn't have to be going down in a plane. It can be of some illness or whatever it may be. You start to look at things differently. So boom, you could change it like that. But that's not the way you want to do it. What you want to do it is with joy. And the other way to do it is through repetition. And it's what you're feeding your mind on a regular basis. And we know that if you do things over a period of time and you do the affirmations on a regular basis, you start to think differently than if you just leave it open to the way it used to be. So at the age of 35, most people say, hey, you're pretty much conditioned.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case. It's really not. It's conditioned because you've let whatever conditions that you went in kind of feed. But the bottom line is you can recondition your mind at the age of 66. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of what you're feeding in there. And it's a matter of what you start to believe. And if you do that over a period of time, you can totally change the way that you think and the way that you believe.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's some people that you've coached, let's say out of 100 people, what percentage of them just don't make it? They don't get past that point of being stuck. What do you think? What's your experience?
Well, I'm pretty good at doing a pretty good job of vetting them. And I don't know, maybe it's a fifth sense or something, but in my case, it's usually about 20%. There's a 20% that can't get past themselves.
I see.
And that a lot of times, but then there's another percent. And sometimes you look at somebody and say, I just don't know if he's going to make it. I'm giving him a shot. And they start to change. The ones that don't make it are the ones that don't do exactly what I just told you about, is making a intentional, being intentional to put things in your mind. And the other part of that is just not about what you put in your mind. It's about the people that you associate with.
Yeah.
So if you're on the top of the ring, we are the average of the 5 people we associate with. And the bottom line, if you're on the top of that 5, you're in the wrong place.
Right.
You're in the wrong place. And that's one of the reasons that I'm always having conversations with people that are just, that kind of get this. And what really happens is once you start to do that, a rising tide lifts all boats. But the people that make a decision not to do it, they're the ones that really don't have the desire to change, or they're in such a terrible fit that they can't get out of their own way.
Right. So let me ask you this question. Let's say there's an executive out there that has a team, whether it's a small team or a big team, whether they're professional service providers or salespeople or whatever it is. What do you think the big impediments are that they need to watch out for as they hire, grow, build their team in terms of taking their team to a whole new level? What do you think those pitfalls are?
It's a great question. The pitfall is usually as people are being put into those upper positions without, number one, having any training to get there. Maybe they were a high performer at the level that they were before, and now they're supposed to become a leader. Instead of a leader, they're trying to manage, and the person they're trying to manage the most is themselves. And so I think a lot of times people are put into positions, including me at one point, where I was moved from sales into management and was way over my head. And I had to fail in that job to kind of figure out what I needed to do next. But usually it's because we're over our heads.
Yeah.
The other part is it's because we don't say this enough, but do you care for your people and do you love your people?
Yeah.
That's something that we don't talk about nearly enough, because if somebody doesn't think you care for them, if somebody doesn't think you love them, and if somebody just thinks they're a transaction, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a transaction. But you care and love for them. And by the way, sometimes caring and loving is realizing that person's problem might not be in the right position and having a conversation with them and saying, what can I do to either move you through this or find another place in another world that you can be happy. Because at the end of the day, if people are not happy in doing what they're doing, then they are a transaction.
Yeah. Wow. That's very deep, Hugh. That really is. So tell me a story of, I'd say, your proudest turnaround situation. When you took it over, what was the team like? What was a key inflection point where things really started taking off? And what was the end result?
Well, every one of them I'm proud of. But the proudest one is when I was diagnosed as an epileptic and hit my head at the age of 10.
Oh, wow.
And so they didn't know much about epilepsy back then. My mother, leaving the hospital said, Hugh, she had tears in her eyes. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, it's going to be okay. And she said, no, you don't understand. People don't understand this disorder, but I just want you to know something. I said, well, that's Mom. She said, never let anybody hold you back, especially yourself. Mm. And so I didn't know that was happening at the time. But what she also taught me was that there were people out there that had been labeled that I really started mentoring and helping back then. But one of the biggest things I did as I went through, so in the 9th grade, they tried to put me in the special needs. Of course, I wouldn't have anything of that. And I remember that teacher like it was yesterday. But then when I went to college, I transferred in from another college and I wanted to become president of a fraternity. And nobody would let me because I wasn't going to be there long enough. So I started my own. And so I figured, president of one, but I could at least do this thing. And I started going door to door and we started recruiting people, but I recruited people that were just, a lot of times very different. And the other fraternities, they were all labeled one, jock, whatever it was. Well, mine was not that way. So we put this thing together. By the end of that year, we were the largest fraternity on campus.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so my model at that time was, I'm only going to be here 2 years. So, come on in and you tell me what it is that you want out of this fraternity and what role that you want to play, and I'll help you do that. And so then I started to realize that it wasn't really about me. It was about them. And then by the end of that year, we were the largest fraternity on campus. By the second year, we were almost twice the size of any other fraternity on campus.
Wow.
All kinds of different people. I'm going to tell you, there were some really different people on there. But the bottom line is what I tried to teach them at the time is that it's not about you guys. It's about where you want to go and who you want to be and who you want to be around. That year, I also created the Greek Week Games over at Radford University, where I brought it was amazing. And if you go on my LinkedIn, you can see my little goofy post on me on a tricycle. We put all these games together, but the whole idea was not about the Greeks. It was about bringing the university together. And so I learned, when I walked off that campus, it was like, that was pretty amazing. But it was something that was taught to me by my mother and my father, that we can be whatever it is that we want to be. Never let anybody hold you back. And I tell you what, Scott, I don't tell this story often, but I'm going to tell it this time. My mother was an amazing person. And so the whole mindset piece that we talk about here was this. You know, it took me to the age of 60 to realize what she was doing. But she would, I love sports. One time I was going to be a sports writer, I thought, but I love the underdog books. And she would take these little kids' books, underdog books, and she would just leave them on my bed. And I'd read those things, and it was all about the person that had disability or whatever and overcame. And so she did that time and time again. I read each one of those, and it just became a part of me. I didn't realize what she was doing at that time was that mindset piece that we were talking about, that unconditional mind. She was putting that in me in a way that I carry it today. It's the way I build these businesses. I don't build businesses, I build people. You don't build culture. Culture is nothing but a group of people. And if you can take people to work together, and you can take a CEO or COO and you start connecting the dots, that's when you go from 65 million to 150 million in 3.5 years, is what we did in this last company. But the whole thing is, we didn't only create the numbers, we created a brand, because it was a company that was out of New Jersey, New York, that had never been outside. And we took those things across the United States, and it just became a part of each one of us. But they became a part of me. And, but it wasn't about the numbers as much as it was watching those people grow.
Hugh, that's such a great story. I mean, there's probably 7 things we could talk about from that. Let me ask you this one question. You mentioned this before, and I really appreciate what you shared, especially about your mom, what she told you. Don't let anybody get in your way, even yourself. What do you think for those people out there where they are in their own way? Why do you think that is? And what can they do to overcome that?
I'm going to answer that question, but maybe with a question. Scott, how many people do we know that say, I just have a hard time getting up in the morning?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time getting out of bed. I hear it. I hear that time and time again. Well, if you want to get out of bed in the morning, start changing the way you think when you go to bed. It's a proven fact that you can't be depressed if you show gratitude.
Wow.
If we start showing gratitude, and you start showing gratitude, in the evenings, and you start showing gratitude in the mornings, I can't wait to get up out of bed. I can't wait to do my gratitude check. And I can't wait to go and do my walk where I put my earbuds in, and all those people are, sharing things with me that are bigger than myself. But if somebody's stuck, now listen, I understand there's depression. There's a lot of things that go on. There's mental illness and everything else. But really, more than the majority of the people are stuck because they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
My mentor told me this. It really hit me, because we all have stuff that we carry along with us and we hide it. And, what he says is what gets impressed gets expressed. So whatever you're hiding is going to be expressed at some point. But what he told me is that whatever you're doing, Hugh, make sure you don't take it to your grave. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to ask themselves, whatever it is that's holding me back, whatever it is, let's not let it take you to the grave. And what it really takes, Scott, is to really do a digging deep within yourself, which is one of the hardest things that you can do, and finding those things that really hurt. And then he also said, forgive that person, and then you got to forgive yourself. Now, that's a lot easier said than done, because I had some issues that happened to me at a younger age that I rarely talk about. I was abused by a teenage kid at the age of 8 that I carried to the age of 60. Mm. And I remember talking to my mom when she was in hospice, and she was an amazing person. And she was abandoned at the age of 3 by her mother on the side of a road. And I said, Mom, we never really had that story. Can you talk about that? And she said, yeah, I will talk about it with you, Hugh. And she started to tell me that story, and she would tell it till it was so hard on her. She said, I just can't tell it anymore. Well, she ended up telling me that story. And I get, fast forward, she's in hospice, get a call from the nurse, and she has passed away. Mm. And so I go to the facility, and the nurse says, as we're walking down the hall, And I got a few tears in my eyes. She pulls me aside. She said, Hugh, can I share something with you? I said, well, yeah, sure. Absolutely. She said, well, your mother could not get out of bed. I said, I know that. I said, well, last night she did. Last night she got out of bed and I saw her at the end of the bed and I walked in. I said, Mary Ellen, who are you talking to? And she said, my mother. And she said, oh, really? She said, yes, I just forgave her.
Wow.
Scott, she got into bed, closed her eyes, and went to heaven. When I heard that story, I said, what is it that's down deep in me that I haven't shared with other people? And it was when I had been abused at the age of 8 by a teenage kid. I was so shamed by that. That I didn't want to tell anybody, and I didn't. I carried it for 60 years. That was my mother delivering a message to me. Don't carry it till you die. To answer the other part of the question is that shame is one of the biggest things that we run into that stop us from being the person that we want to be. And so I had to get through that shame. And I went back that night and I told my wife about it. And she looked at me and like she didn't believe me because I tell her everything. I said, no, honey, I haven't told you this because I haven't told anybody. And then I did exactly what my mentor said. I went back and I forgave him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I kept forgiving him, but then I had to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And then the next part of that story is that I moved over here to the eastern part of Virginia, which is close to where I grew up. And I jumped in the truck one day and I went to that one spot that I'd never been back to, and I forgave him, and I forgave myself. So this is not about me. It's about everybody's got that something that's in there.
Yeah.
But forgiveness is the biggest tool that you can go. If you have something that you're ashamed of, well, forgive whoever that person is, forgive yourself, and then use it as a tool to try to help other people.
Wow. Hugh, I think it's interesting how people think, oh, it's all business, but it's really not. It's personal. In our own growth and development, what you shared, and it's almost like the arc of the things that happened, how you went through it, and how you resolved it. That's the blessing in life right there. And the fact that you're telling other people there about that. I know that there are people listening to this show right now that are like, wow, I really need to work on that. Everybody has something. And isn't it interesting that we're cold-blooded, calculating business people? No, we're human beings, flawed, that have been wounded. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing a solution and possibly even a resolution that people can take and grow and thrive from.
If you're feeling shame, just realize it.
Yeah.
And find that person that you can have a conversation with. And that person really needs to be you. But doing that gratitude in the morning and the evening, it really helps me figure out me. But at the end of the day, we got to do a deep dive. And you know what? We are so fortunate to be a part of the most incredible opportunity and country. And it's awesome. And I'm telling you that if we're feeling bad about something, we can start feeling, better about it. But remember this, if you're feeling gratitude, you're not going to go through depression. You're not going to go through that other side because it's impossible to feel both. So keep working on that. And you can do it for the companies, and you can tie the company's goals in with the people. And then you can take a step back and just watch it go. And then, what's the hardest thing is, Scott? You got to keep up in your own game, which to me, I think that's a pretty neat journey to be on. Well,
Hugh, I appreciate you being on the show. We're going to end this show a little bit differently. We're just going to end it right here with me expressing gratitude for you being bold enough to help people with their issues. Because I think that's the secret of success right there. And it spins out in other directions. So for everybody listening, we're going to put Hugh's contact information on the show notes. And Hugh, is there anything that you'd like for people to know about you, about services that you offer, things that you can offer them for them to stay connected with you, to get to know you better?
Look me up on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I'm excited to announce that in 4 weeks, I am launching a new business, and it's going to be very much based on, having a 6-month type program that you can go through to understand exactly some of the things that I've been talking about. I'm passionate about helping other people and getting other people to help themselves. So I've got a coaching and consulting business. Hugh.h@everflowsupplies.com is the best way to get to me now. In another month, I'll get this information to you, my new website, and then I'll also get you some of the information we have. I'm telling you that don't wait till the age of 60 to do some of the stuff that I've done. You don't have to, but even if you're 70, it doesn't matter what age you are. Let's have a conversation, and then we can tell if my program works for you, fine. If not, just love to have conversations with people, because at the end of the day, we're all about trying to make this world just a little bit better place.
Well, thank you for being here, Hugh. And for everybody listening, we're going to put all that information on the show notes. So wherever you're listening to the podcast, go there and you'll be able to connect with Hugh directly. Thank you, Hugh, for being on my show. And I know we're going to have you back on in the future.
And Scott, love, I just want to say how much I appreciate you. You're a real gift to this world. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Hugh.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for listening to the Rainmaking Podcast. For more information about our recruiting services for international law firms, visit our website at attorneysearchgroup.com. To inquire about having Scott speak at your next convention, conference, sales meeting, or executive retreat, visit therainmakingpodcast.com.